Welcome in, everybody. It's obviously a very, very interesting one today with Derby County facing up against Stoke City tomorrow. There's obviously some interesting transfer news going on behind the scenes in regards to stuff going on the forum, and obviously some updates regarding potentially the likes of Max Johnston, the likes of Lewis Travis as well. Obviously, a few of you already in the chat, so welcome, welcome, welcome. Make yourself be known in the comments. Nice to see you again, Agent TJ Parkey. We're in a really good position here as Derby County fans, and across the course of this stream we're going to be looking at some of the latest transfer news. We're going to be looking at everything that's going on in regards to the likes of Max Johnston, the likes of Lewis Travis, and all things along those lines, because it is a sort of interesting one for many fans to follow along with. And obviously, as we're going through the stream, obviously you can drop your questions in the comments, whether that be transfer related or related to tomorrow's game. I'm happy to answer it all. Obviously, if you don't already know, tomorrow I will be live from around 2:30. We're going to do a live watch along of Derby County versus Stoke City, and we're going to keep all up to date with that and sort of see how that all goes. Again, sort of discussing team news and everything along those lines. Obviously, we're in a fairly decent position in the transfer window. Obviously, just a couple of weeks now left to go, and hopefully we can get a couple more moves done. But obviously, at this present moment in time, we're sort of stuck in that position of no man's land, really, where we're getting some players back from injury and things along those lines. Will Matt Clark play? Now, that is a good question. According to John Eustace's press conference the other night, it's one of those which is very much touch and go, and it's very much going to be sort of a late call. I believe the decision obviously will have been made by now, because I imagine they'll have travelled down to Stoke, if I'm honest. I know it's not that far away from Moor Farm and Pride Park, but I imagine that's something that will have been sort of looked at across the course of today and yesterday and things like that. But as it stands right now, I'd be led to believe that he probably won't, if I'm completely honest. I think it'll be probably a similar team to that played up against the Greek team just over a week ago. Now, obviously, let's get into a little bit of the transfer talk then, because that's obviously what you're all here for. That's what this whole stream is about. And the most important thing for me, for Derby County fans to understand, is that I'm not turning around and saying that I know any of this for fact. I'm not going to try and claim to be in the know or anything along those lines, but I think I want to just talk about the likes of Lewis Travis, Max Johnston, Alfie Gilchrist, because they are some very, very important news. Now, obviously, in regards to Max Johnston, Derby County had a bid rejected last weekend, rumoured to be within the region of around £1.6 million, which obviously it's quite a decent fee for Derby County. We've spent quite a decent chunk of money across the course of this transfer window, and I think in regards to that of Max Johnston, I think I'm not going to turn around and say Derby County don't need a right back, but I think right back is certainly one of those positions where obviously now with the signing of Dion Sanderson, right back certainly isn't necessarily needed. I do have a microphone. Is it not connected? Let me just check that it's connected to my mic. It is connected to my mic. I will check the sound. Just give me a second. I will check the sound. But in regards to that of Max Johnston, it's one of those where, do you really want to pay sort of over the odds for bringing in a player like that, or do you sort of want to wait up and sort of see what happens? And I think in regards to that, we've obviously got to be very sort of careful for me, because you can go and spend £2 million on Max Johnston and it doesn't really work, but we're sort of going to have to sort of wait and see how that one sort of develops. Sounds all good on my end in regards to the microphone, so we'll just leave it at that. But obviously, for me, I know a lot of people sort of want that signing of Max Johnston because it's a name that we haven't really heard. It's a name we don't really know, and obviously that's always exciting. It's always nice to see those sort of names, but it's one of those which needs to be sort of dealt with over the course of time. And I think that it will be sort of a good, if it happens, I think it'll be a good move, but I don't necessarily think it's one that is a necessary. He's being rude. I can hear you. I know that I can be heard. I know that my microphone isn't the most expensive one in the world, but it's just one of those things. I'm not going to go out and spend like 100 odd quid on a microphone right now. But hey ho. But it is one of those things with that right back sort of position, the centre back sort of position. Obviously, with the introduction of Dion Sanderson, who was brought in just a couple of days ago, it's one of those where, do you want to bring in another right back and sort of have an extra option? Is it really necessary when you've got Wilson coming back in 4 to 6 weeks? You've got Langas, who will soon be back as well, where you can sort of add an extra body who can perform at right back. You've got Nelson, who will be back in a couple of months as well. So it's a fairly sort of good position for Derby County to be in. Now, in regards to that right back position, there was a bit of news which dropped over the course of the last couple of hours in regards to Alfie Gilchrist, who, if any of you did watch that video that I did on him a couple of months ago, you would have known that he was valued at around £5 million by Chelsea, and that asking price has now been lowered to around £5 million, from £5 million, to around £1.5 million plus add-ons with a sell-on clause as well. And I think that is sort of something really interesting to sort of look at across the course of this transfer window. Audio sounds fine to me. Thank you, Serial Thriller. Really appreciate that. But yeah, with Gilchrist, it's a move that could be really good for Derby County, because you add an extra body that can play right back, that can play centre back. It's a long-term investment as well. At just £1.5 million. Audio is a bit low. Let's see that way. Let's see if I can turn it up on here. Just give me a second. Let me know if that's any better for you in the chat. I've just turned up my mic on Streamlabs. But yeah, in regards to Gilchrist, it's one of those that sort of long term, him and Max Johnston sort of have the same sort of path that we could sort of take. But it's one of those where you bring one of them in, and one of then our right backs has to move on, really, because then you've got Wilson, Niambi, and you'd have Gilchrist, or you'd have, instead of Gilchrist, you'd have Max Johnston or anything like that. Appreciate the help in the comments, lads. Really appreciate that. Obviously, I imagine some of your subscribers, I recognise a couple of your names, but if you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe button. Doing everything we can to... didn't someone comment on your video earlier saying Johnston was accepted? Yeah, I have seen that comment, but I'm not entirely sure where he's getting the information from, if I'm honest. I need to go through my comments and reply. I've been a bit of a slouch on them today. I've had quite a busy day, to be quite honest. But the comment says, Derby County has agreed a deal with Sturm Graz to sign Scottish defender Max Johnston. A club-to-club agreement is in place, though the financial details haven't officially been disclosed. An earlier £1.4 million bid was rejected, but a report on Football League World says the Rams increased an offer to £1.6 million, which was accepted. Johnston is under contract for 2 more years, and other clubs were interested, which... Now, I'm led to believe that the bid that we put in at the weekend that was rejected was worth around 1.6. Now, I can't find any article or anything relating to Derby County having a bid accepted, so I'm sort of erring on the side of caution with that one. But if I do see something, I'll obviously discuss it. Obviously, that is the whole point of this whole live stream here, and I'm trying to sort of get live streams a bit more into my channel and things like that, because I think I really enjoy sort of interacting with you guys. Like, it's good to have these comments on the videos why I'm sort of discussing. Essentially, it gives me sort of things to look at as well that you guys have seen. And yeah, that's pretty much what I've seen as well, Thriller, that a £1.6 million bid was rejected at the weekend, but I've not seen anything further than that, if I'm completely honest. So we're sort of going to have to sort of wait and see on that one. Obviously, Johnston didn't play the other night for Sturm Graz. I do believe it was a friendly, though. I didn't know that at the time, but I do believe it was a friendly, so it's not something major where he was out of the squad because he's moving teams, but it's one of those to obviously keep an eye on. In fact, I'll just check now when they play their next game, because obviously keep an eye on their team sheet, see if he is involved or anything like that, because obviously Sturm Graz are a fairly decent side in Austria, and obviously having that Champions League position will sort of be interesting. They play on the 10th. At 4 o'clock. You watching the game tonight? I'm assuming you're on about Birmingham, Ipswich. Yeah, I will be chucking it on, absolutely. I really want to see how Birmingham get on, if I'm completely honest with you, because obviously with their change of ownership over the course of the last 18 months and everything that they've done, it's going to be very interesting to see how they do shake out in the Championship. They've spent a decent ton of money as well in regards to obviously transfers and things like that, and they already had a fairly decent squad. Obviously they've brought in Erin Cashin, who we know well, which is a good move for them. They've obviously brought in Asai Samuel, who, if I remember rightly, was at QPR a few years ago. You've got Damari Gray, a very good move for them. But it's one of those where I'm not entirely sure where Birmingham is going to face up. I think they're going to be in a similar sort of position to us, if I'm completely honest. But obviously we'll wait and see how that progresses over the course of the next few months, essentially, because we've not even got our team together yet, really, because of how many players are injured. I'm quite enjoying their Prime documentary. Do you know, I need to give it a watch, because I've seen quite a lot of clips about it on Twitter and TikTok and things like that, but I'm not quite sure how I feel about it. I know that when you've got things like, there was a Sunderland one which I think was on Netflix, you've got obviously the Wrexham one, which is really good, you've got the Man City one which was on Amazon Prime, and I think there's some really, really good ones out there, and it's obviously going to be very interesting to see how it's portrayed for Birmingham City. Obviously, I've seen a few clips of what's his name, Tom Brady, and to be honest with you, I think he comes across a bit like an idiot, if I'm honest. I think, don't get me wrong, I understand I understand NFL, where he comes from. I've watched that a fair bit across the course of the last year or so, but it's one of those where he doesn't really know football, and I think some of the things he said are a bit disrespectful. But then obviously when you look at that sort of changes that they're making over there, they could be in a really good position. Could do with Elon Musk buying big shares in Derby. Do you know what? I'd take anyone chucking some extra cash into Derby. That is actually something which I want to discuss. The tweet that was put out earlier today by Dom Dietrich. Let me just get it up so I know exactly what he said. Because obviously that regards to transfers as well. Eustace as the manager in the first few episodes. Yeah, it's definitely worth me giving it a look then and seeing how Eustace shakes up. Now, in regards to transfers and things like that, Dom Dietrich put out a tweet earlier today from the supporters board meeting. The current and planned spend on the first team in this transfer window is in line with existing cash funding. The existing cash funding agreement with Clouds Development is not driven by or dependent on additional investment, which for me is very, very interesting, because there's been a lot of theories going around that Derby County have had investment behind the scenes and they're just keeping it quiet, which, if that's what they have done, they're doing a fairly decent job of it, to be completely honest. And obviously you can't fault them if that's what they choose to do, because obviously when you bring in investment, you've got to make sure that you've got the best possible thing available, really. And for me, whatever investment we do bring in, we know it's going to be with the right people, because of what David Clowes wants and things like that. But it's one which we have to keep across. Now, there has been a lot of talk about Lewis Travis in the last 24 to 48 hours, where people have been saying that a deal is agreed, fees have been agreed, personal terms and all that jazz. But again, similar to that of the Max Johnson comment, which we saw, which a couple of you have seen on my channel, there is no confirmation, there's no legitimate source behind that. And I think it's a difficult debacle that we find ourselves within, because I think Lewis Travis would be a great signing, but I was replying to someone on Twitter earlier and looking at our squad registration, I'm led to believe we have 24 slots taken out of 25. Now, I know that as 21s and under aren't registered unless they're loan players, but we have 24, 21 plus and loans. Maybe Clouds is spending bigger, as if we have a more successful season, will be more appealing to investors, so Clouds will benefit in the long run. Do you know what? You could actually be pretty spot on with that, if I'm completely honest, because for me, that is very much sort of a situation that we could find ourselves in, where David Clouds is obviously sort of putting us in a position where we could potentially get promoted and things like that. Have we made a new signing? No, we haven't made a new signing. I'm just discussing some of the talks that have been ongoing across the course of social media at the moment in regards of the likes of Alfie Gilchrist, obviously Max Johnston, Lewis Travis as well. Do you think we will get Gilchrist? Do you know, I think if Derby County aren't going in for Johnston anymore and that deal isn't going to get done, I don't personally have a problem with going and getting Gilchrist. Gilchrist is one of those players for me that, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to turn around and say like he's a world beater or he's going to be a world beater, but he seems to be very good at everything but not spectacular at anything, if that makes sense. I think he can do all the defensive stuff right, he's okay going forward, he's good on the ball, and I don't think you could go far wrong with him, because obviously he can slot into the two centre-back positions. He can play as a right centre-half in the back three. He can obviously play as a right-back as well. He has played at wing-back before as well, which is obviously sort of something that could be done at Derby County across the course of the next 12 months. But obviously it's one of those which it's sort of going to have to develop over the course of the next couple of weeks or so. And I do think he'll make a move. Yeah, it could be why they got Ajimang in hopes of American interest with the World Cup coming up. I think with American interest and things like that, there was a lot of talk earlier on in the off-season in regards to a couple of American potential investors, buyers, but obviously a lot of that talk was regards to something happening on the 1st of July, but obviously, as we all know, sat here now in August, that didn't happen. But obviously that's something which we'll sort of have to keep an eye on, because just because it didn't happen then doesn't mean it won't happen in the future, if that makes sense. Ajimang theory is interesting. Surely we'll attract more American investors. I do think that obviously you look at what Spurs did with Heung-min Song, and you look at what some of the other clubs have done. I think Oxford have done it recently as well with an Indonesian player. It completely boosts your brand and puts you in a brand new position. And I'm not saying that Oxford have done it for more money, but ultimately you build your brand, you make more money, and that's just how life works. So it'll be interesting to sort of see if that is what Derby County have done with Ajimang, and the only way that that's going to work is Ajimang being a successful signing, but we're going to have to sort of wait and see how that progresses. Yeah, I heard some rumours. We've got the beginnings of a great squad. Been a while since I felt this positive before the start of a season. Do you know something? The last season where I feel as if I was this positive was genuinely the season coming out of administration, because I genuinely, personally, many people may disagree, many people may not, I thought Liam Rosenior would take us up that year. He didn't get the opportunity to, but obviously you look at what Rosenior's done elsewhere. He's a fairly decent coach. Welcome in FM Frenzy, welcome to the stream. If you've got any questions regarding transfers, tomorrow's game or anything like that, drop them down in the comments. Cyril Ferrer, of course, he adds something different as well up front, and it could help interest. I think you're spot on, to be quite honest. I think you've obviously got that sort of conversation in regards to dipping into those foreign markets. You look at a player like Kenzo Heldmine. If he has a great season this year, you instantly increase Dutch interest in Derby County, whether that be from a fan perspective, maybe even higher up as well. And you also, I'm not turning around and saying Kenzo's going to get a full international call-up, but if he has a great season, you get those sort of people turning up at your games to keep an eye on him, because then you've got teams that may want to come in and bring him in and things like that. And that obviously sort of opens up the situation for us as we move forward. But it is an interesting one. I think it's been a very, very interesting transfer window. I think we've spent quite well in regards to the players we've brought in and things like that. But I think if we could sort of get in, obviously, you've just mentioned it there about Lampard and the squad that he put together with the likes of Mount and Wilson. I think you look at Bobby Clark, Ryan Brewster, I think they could have the same impact, but we're going to have to wait and see. Is Clark fit? Not centre-back Clark, and if he is he going to start tomorrow? Now, I was listening to John Eustace's press conference. I did a reaction video to that, which went out last night, and it comes across to me that he's not going to be involved at all tomorrow because he's lagging a bit behind in terms of fitness, because the only minutes he's played for Salzburg during pre-season was against us, and I believe he only played about 10 or 15 minutes in that game. But if he was fit, I do think he would start 100%, like without a shadow of a doubt. But obviously at the moment fitness is kind of up in the air, including that of centre-back Clark as well. To be honest, also wouldn't be surprised if we signed someone we were totally unaware of. Well, Carlton Morris literally came out of nowhere. There'd been a lot of murmurs and things like that, but it was sort of, there was never any concrete interest. And that's why I don't want to shut down the talks around Lewis Travis and Max Johnston, because although there's no concrete sort of latest on those deals, it doesn't mean that they aren't going on. And I think the fact that we got Carlton Morris done without any sort of outside noise put us in a really, really good position. Good evening, Dan. Hope you're okay. Hope you're getting on well. Good evening, Serial Thriller. Welcome in, everybody. Appreciate you all stopping by. But for me, I think we're in a great position. I genuinely do. Obviously, someone earlier mentioned the Lampard season. I think it was FM Frenzy who was discussing that. And I think that season, the moves we made in the transfer window, I know not all of them paid off long term, but for that season, you look at obviously Mason Mount, Harry Wilson, Fikayo Tomori, Marriott was great that season, and all those sorts of things. And I think, for me, we're getting a similar sort of feel this year, but I think we've got a manager that can actually handle it, if I'm completely honest. And I'm not saying that Lampard couldn't handle a push for promotion and things like that, but he put himself in a difficult position at times for me, and especially when he lost Mount, we didn't really have anyone that could sort of back him up. Thoughts on Brewster, everyone? Cam, centre forward striker. I personally believe he's going to play as that number 10, or he's going to play off the right. I'm pretty someone just mentioned it in the comments, was given the squad number 10, which is interesting. Is that related to where he could sort of put himself on the pitch? Is he going to be that number 10? But I think he's going to rotate between the number 10 role, the right wing role, things like that. I think Bobby Clark is also going to have a massive role to play in that sort of number 10 position. But obviously, we've got to wait for them all to be fit and available. We'll be in a great position in a couple of months. I think, to be honest, we're going to have to be patient with the team and grind out some results until then. Yeah, completely agree. I think if you look at the starting 11, which is which many people have predicted for tomorrow, it's pretty much bang smack a team that we displayed last year. I put my team out there. If I can just find it, I will say it to you. I put my team out there, and it's pretty much the same, bar a couple of faces, obviously. Has anything happened with Wilson? Because a few months ago he rejected a contract, didn't he? Has there been any news on a bid for him or no? In regards to bid and anything happening with him, there's been nothing. In regards to injury, John Eustace said, I believe it was a week or so ago, that it's about 6 weeks away. So probably after that first international break. I think we're in a position with Wilson where we can sort of wait it out. And I think we can get a deal done later down the line with him if Derby County are in a good position. Because I think that's probably what Wilson is thinking in regards to contracts and things like that. Obviously just had his extension option triggered, which then sort of opened the door for that deal to be done further down the line rather than something that's a rush. Can Bobby Clark play left wing as well? Yes, he can. He can play off the left. He can play as a 10 on the right, and he can also play in that sort of like number 8 position, a bit like Kenzo's been playing during pre-season, which I think will be a very, very interesting one to see how that progresses across the course of the season once he gets fit and available, to sort of see where John Eustace sees him. Because I don't know if any of you listened to the press conference from the other day. Obviously, he sort of shut down right back being a priority position with the signing of Sanderson, but he also discussed style of play. And I think that realistically he's maybe hinting at a possibility that maybe Ibu Adams might not be a starter come the end of the year with the way that he wants to go in terms of play style, because he says he wants to be less direct, he wants to be better in possession. And I'm hoping that with signings like Bobby Clark, getting Kenzo on the ball, I'm hoping that can put us in a really good position. Now, obviously, we was discussing a minute ago team selections and things like that. Now, for me, I've gone with a 4-2-3-1, which is pretty much, it is the exact same team that we played versus the Greek team, but it's one of those for me where it's essentially a team we could have played last year, bar 2 players. Zetterstrom in goal, a back 4 of Niambi, Rooney, Bart and Fozzie, a midfield 3 of Thompson, Kenzo and Adams. On the right, Jackson. On the left, Blackett, Taylor. Up front, Morris. And then I said Niambi out for Sanderson just after half time. Thompson out for Ozo at around 65 minutes, something along those lines. And then Kenzo and Morris out for Andres Weimann and Brown at 75 to 90 just to get them on the pitch. But we're going to have to sort of wait and see on that one. Bobby Clark was genius because our winger depth is poor. I think it's still shaky with him, but even if we get like a free agent or something to let us breathe, yeah, I don't disagree. I think we've also got to look at some of those sort of young talents coming through the academy who maybe could be involved across the course of the next few weeks in regards to obviously fitness levels and stuff, because you've got Dejon Brown, who I think is going to be involved tomorrow. Charles Abuka may be involved tomorrow as well because we don't have a backup striker. And obviously, I know Andreas Weimann can play there, but it's not necessarily who you want there. He sort of wants to be that man in behind. But it will be interesting to sort of see how it shakes out with those youngsters and if any of them sort of take over. But it's a very, very interesting one to see sort of how it develops. First 5 games, Stoke, Cov, Bristol City, Ipswich and West Brom. A couple of tough ones in there. They are unbelievably tough, and I think many of those teams are going to be well within that sort of position to be fighting for playoff positions and things like that. Like Bristol City last season playoffs. Did Coventry got playoffs last year as well? Stoke were in and around us last year. Ipswich in the Premier League. West Brom were in and around it. So we're in a very, very interesting position with that, and sort of how that may progress going forwards. And hopefully a couple of the signings will be available for those 5 games, but I know it's looking less and less likely after what John Eustace had to say yesterday. How far off are Brewster and Aji? Do we know? So with Ajimang, he had a hernia operation, which I believe will keep him out for, I want to say, I think it was like a 2-month rehab type vibe. So that means he'd be back around the first international break just after. In regards to Ryan Brewster, he's fit in terms of he could play, but he's not sort of match ready. He's not played at all during pre-season. He's sort of been training on his own, which sort of opens that door for it to be a little bit sort of difficult for him to sort of come straight into the fire, essentially. So that's something which we're going to have to sort of assess week by week. I think Eustace will do, if I'm completely honest. But hopefully Brewster's going to be a difficult one for me because he could be involved. He could be involved in not Tuesday, but next Saturday. He also might not be involved until after the international break, but we'll sort of wait and see. I have mixed feelings with Bath's pre-season, a goal, but also a slip-up. Also, Weimann said in his interview he prefers playing Cam around there instead of on the wing. Yeah, I completely understand the sort of mixed nature of Danny Bart, because he has been sort of in that position where he's had a couple of iffy moments. I think, was it Burton where Matt Clark played him a pass and he lost it, or was it that Solihull? No, there was a game where Matt Clark played the ball across and he couldn't get onto the ball and it put us in a bad position. I think we conceded, if I remember rightly, but I think he's very good. If you get him defending, I think he's fine. If you get him sort of where he's sort of got to sort of take the mantle and he's sort of the main man that's got to do all the chasing and things like that, I think we'll get caught out. But I don't think he will be that, if I'm honest. And in regards to Weimann, obviously he is versatile. He can play he can play up top. He can play either wing. He can play as the 10. He can play as like a second striker in a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-3. But for me, obviously, yeah, he wants to play as that 10, and that's what he never got to do at Derby back during, God knows, how long ago was that? 2018? Maybe before then. So obviously this time is with a manager that understands him, a manager that knows how to get the best out of him, because we saw it at Blackburn, we've seen him play similar roles at Bristol City, and hopefully he could sort of take himself to the next level for us. I know he's towards the back end of his career. I'm pretty sure it was his birthday either today or yesterday, but hopefully he can sort of find that spark and to help Derby County move to the next level. Bart definitely looked slow, but apparently he carried Blackburn's defence last season. In Eustace we trust. Yeah, you spot on. We have to back John Eustace, especially with how he turned us around last season. I think many of you may have been around then, many of you may not, but I think it was around the first week of March I made a video essentially saying that Derby County should prepare for League One, start getting some of the youngsters in and things like that, because I think we were 7 points off safety, and it literally was going to take playoff form for Derby County to stay up, and that's literally what we did. And it's unbelievable that we got to that point and we was able to do that, and I'm so glad that we did, because it's given us this transfer window with Vyman, with the likes of Bobby Clark, Carlton Morris coming in, and that wouldn't have happened if we'd have gone down. We'd have been in an awful position. Transfer window has been really intriguing and exciting, really impressed with the signings and more to come. Eustace and the club have worked tirelessly. Just hope they all get to gel. Do you know something? I completely agree. We've got to give them time. We have got to give them time, and I do think it's going to be sort of a slow initial process, but I think, as I said the other day, I think Derby County are the dark horses in the Championship, because not just of where we finished last year, but also the position we've put ourselves in now with the squad that we've got. No one really knows where we're going to end up or how we're going to end up in that position, and that's obviously something which comes with, I don't think we're in a pressure position. I don't think anybody expects us to be a playoff team, but I know there's a lot of talk about us being that, about us having that first full season under Eustace and really pushing on, and I do think we can do it. I think we need a couple more signings on the left hand side, maybe another one in the middle, and I think that would put us in a really, really good position. I think he's good, but that slip up versus Burton was poor, because I think there will be some tight games, and if he does that against Bristol or Leicester, they'll take it. I think he'll do well though. Yeah, you spot on. I think definitely at this level we're sort of in that position whereas in League One, you could make those mistakes. We saw it time and time again with Nelson, Cashin, Sonny Bradley making those errors. You wouldn't necessarily always get punished. It was more of like a 5 out of 10 chance you'd get punished. Whereas in the Championship, it's more like a 8, 9 out of 10 chance that you're going to get punished. And that obviously makes it really, really hard. It's going to take some time, but I think when it gels, we will be up there. Completely agree. I genuinely think it's going to be really hard to judge this squad until around probably December time, really, because even when sort of these players are fit and available and sort of pushing us forward, they're not actually going to be fully tactically in it straight away, which is sort of that sort of interesting boat that we find ourselves in, where players are still going to be learning the tactical setups and things like that. Now, I'm hoping that Eustace has those players involved in the tactics and things like that right now, even though they're not fully match fit, so that they know what they're getting themselves into. But it will be interesting to see how it develops across the course of the next few weeks and things along them lines. Eustace has made some of the weirdest but smartest signings, I think, out of the Championship. The one that really caught me off guard was Ryan Brewster. When that sort of, I think it was tweeted by someone called Maz on Twitter, and I'll be brutally honest, I did not believe it. I just had no reason to believe it. I didn't think that was a deal that could happen for Derby. But ultimately, it did happen. And we're now in a position where we've got a £25 million striker. And if he can get anywhere near close to the form that he got from Ryan Brewster back at Swansea or anything like that, I think we're in for a very, very good season, to be quite honest with you, because he's a very, very good player with a lot of ability, and he's going to cause a lot of problems if we get him firing. Imagine if Brewster gets back to form. Exactly. He is genuinely, for me, Brewster is one of those players that can set the game alight. Now, I'm not saying he's going to have to be the guy to score and assist, but I think he's going to be the guy that's going to cause problems that get people into the areas. You look at Corey Blackett-Taylor, he's going to thrive off having Brewster on the other side. Carlton Morris is going to thrive off that because it takes attention away from them. Now, obviously, you then add in someone like Bobby Clark or Andreas Weimann, and you've got 4 players at the top end of the pitch that can have a huge impact on what Derby County do, and that makes us harder to defend against. Whereas if you go back to last season, obviously we had Jerry Yates, we had Marcus Harness, you had obviously Mendes Lang and things like that. And I'm not saying that any of those are bad players, but ultimately Mendes Lang didn't have a good season. You knew that you could give Jerry Yates a sitter or two and he'd miss it. You know that obviously you look at Marcus Harness, was very up and down last season, went for a 5-6 game spell like he played like R9 and then just disappeared off the face of the earth again. So it's one of those where I'm really hopeful that with what we've got this season and all the problems that we're going to possess, not just in the starting 11 but also coming off the bench, I think we're in a much better position sort of across the course of the season. We just need to get we need to get a left winger in for me. And then obviously you've got 2 options on the left, you've got 2 options on the right, you've got a couple of options in the 10, you've got a couple of options in those pivot positions as well. And then obviously when Adjumang and Selvison are fit, you've got 3 different options as strikers as well. But it's going to be interesting to see. Brewster just has to stay fit as he was blighted by injuries, but fingers crossed. Yeah, he's had a couple of difficult spells with injuries as Brewster, but it's one of those for me where they're the types of players that we need, players that have a point to prove and players that want to stay fit for a reason. I think if you look at David Ozo, he's a prime example of a player that Derby County need because he believes he's got unfinished business at Derby. That should make people quake in their boots genuinely because he is such a good player, and if he can stay fit, if he stayed fit, I think we'd still have Paul Warren in charge at Derby County. That is my personal opinion because I don't think we'd have been in the position we was in because of how good he is. But obviously we're going to have to wait and see if he can keep his fitness going and things like that. I think he can. Sheffield United spend quite a lot on him, so we might not be the star, but I reckon it'll be an underrated season. Yeah. I think he's not going to be sort of key man, but I think he's going to be one of the options, and that is what Derby County didn't have last season. It's options in that forward area. Like we had to bring in Kmar Roof because we didn't have forward options. And I'm not down in Selvison or anything like that because we haven't really seen the best of him. But did he really give Jerry Yates a challenge? He looked bright on occasion, scored that goal. I think it was against Cardiff, but didn't really have any major moments, and the moments he did have didn't go in. So it'll be interesting to see how Selvison fits in when he gets back fit. Ozo for me is massive if he stays fit. Completely agree. I think the most important thing for Derby and the way that John Eustace wants to go is keeping players like Ozo, Kenzo, Bobby Clark, keeping those 3 fit, because that's what I think our midfield is going to be. If I'm completely honest, I think by the end of the season, injury dependent obviously, I think our midfield 3 will be David Ozo, Kenzo Helpmine, and Bobby Clark. And that's nothing against Ebo Adams or Liam Thompson or Ben Osborne, but I just think when you want to go technical, you want to cause problems on the ball, you need technical beasts, and for me that's exactly what those 3 give you. David Ozo is unbelievable in a tackle. He's great with the ball. He's good at using his body and things like that. You've got Kenzo who can pick out killer passes. Bobby Clark who can play that little bit ahead. And he and Kenzo can have that rotation. And I think it put us in a really good position, if I'm completely honest. Now, obviously, this is sort of a transfer live stream. So if you have any questions about transfers, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Obviously, there's always things going on in the world of football in regards of transfers, and to be completely honest, the world of football never stops. Even during the off season, it just keeps going. Like the scouts and everything like that will have been working their arses off to put things together. It's not the Derby way for those to be fit all season. Crazy talk. You're entirely correct. You completely are, because when was the last time Derby County kept their best players fit for an entire season? I genuinely can't remember it. I genuinely can't. And hopefully, obviously the hope is that Derby County can put themselves in a position this season where they can keep everybody fit, but obviously right about now, we've got a fair few players out, and that obviously causes problems. It will be interesting to see the formation tomorrow. I'm going to be completely honest, I don't think it changes from pre-season. I think it will be a 4-2-3-1, and I think that's where we're going to stay across the course of this season. I can't see us sort of straying too far from it, apart from when we play maybe Leicester, maybe Ipswich. Southampton might be another one where we switch to a 5. But it's one of those where we've got to be diligent in what we do. We can't just sort of change the setup just because the opposition team is supposed to be a better team. We've got to sort of put ourselves in a position where we sort of cause problems. And if we were to play like a 3-5-2 or anything like that, at the moment I don't necessarily think we have the options fit, but I also think we're in sort of that position where we need a couple more defensive bodies if Eustace wants to play that, because there's no point playing 3 centre-backs when you don't have a backup, for me. And obviously Fozzie has got to play left wing as it stands because we don't know about Owen Beck. And obviously we haven't heard or seen Callum Elder since, what game? I want to say Salzburg was the last time Callum Elder played. So it will be interesting to sort of see how it all shakes up for them. Obviously, if we look at the friendlies and things like that, we were in a great position. But we've got to obviously sort of keep the options open across the course of pre-season. If we don't switch it up, since we've got quite a lot of strikers, wouldn't have said that a few months ago, they all want game time. Yeah, you're spot on. Everybody is going to want game time, and the problem that is going to come with that is at some point we may have to go 2 strikers just to keep players happy, but also you could play 2 strikers in that 4-2-3-1 because Carlton Morris played a similar sort of role versus, I think it was against us. He played sort of like in behind, is it Milenkic Ali, I think his name is, which obviously, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to say that's where Carlton Morris should play, but if we have to play 2 strikers, if we want to cause major problems, we have the ability to do so. Now, what is interesting, obviously for Derby County fans alike and things like that, is that on Tuesday night we face up against West Brom, which is where I think we need to sort of chuck a few of the youngsters in. Now, I have just chucked up the update for injuries on FOTMob for Derby County, and it says Callum Elder is out until early September. Then it says Wilson is out till January. Selverson is November. Clark and Beck are doubtful. Ajimang is at October. Langas is January. Now, I don't know how true they are. We'll sort of keep on top of it as John Eustace speaks and things like that. But it's very, very interesting. Also, what is going on with Ward? Feel like he was meant to leave, but he's staying now. I mean, has there been any bids for him? Now, back in January, I'm pretty sure he went and looked around Mansfield, and there was a massive sort of... It looked done. Like, genuinely, it looked done. There's a video on my channel talking about him, like, essentially going. Obviously, the deal hadn't been confirmed, and I said that in the video, but that's the way it was looking. Followed all their players on social media, was on their sort of social media pages as well, and it sort of looked as if he was on the way out. But now, I don't really know where he stands. I've had a few messages across the course of this transfer window in regards to Joe Ward, saying that he will be heading out and things like that. But ultimately, there's not been any concrete interest. There's not been any bids that have been publicised. So it doesn't seem as if that is anywhere near done. But obviously, we've still got a couple of weeks left of the transfer window. And while Derby County are struggling for numbers, he will be a fairly decent option off the bench, which is where I think he'll be tomorrow. Loving the lives. Appreciate that. Thank you. Serial Thriller. Stoke away predictions. Do you know something? I said it the other day. I think it's going to be a tight game. I think there's going to be 1 goal in it. Whether it be a 2-1, 3-2, 1-0, I think there's going to be 1 goal in it. I do think we're going to come away with it. I think if we grind out a win tomorrow, it just breeds confidence into the squad. And I think that's definitely on the cards for Derby tomorrow, because we're a very, very good team. And even the players that are available, although they're not the best sort of players that we've got in the club, they're still very, very good players, and that's obviously something which we'll have to keep on top of across the course of this season. It's making sure that we grind out those results, we cause problems to oppositions, and that's something that we haven't had majorly over the course of the last few seasons, and hopefully that continues heading into obviously this upcoming season and things like that. Jim Smith's promotion season where players stayed fit, wouldn't it be amazing if Eustace could get the Sturridge, Williams, Simpson, Gabbiadini effect with goals coming throughout the team? Do you know something? That's exactly what I'm dying for. And I think with the players we've brought in, Brewster's going to be a goal threat. Blackett-Taylor is essentially a new signing. I think he's going to be a goal threat. Vyman, Clark, goal threats. And that's not even mentioning the strikers. Like, I think Kenzo will score a couple of goals this season as well. Didn't necessarily have the output he wanted last year, but I think when he played in that role where he was a little bit deeper, he was so much more impactful for Derby County and caused so many problems. So hopefully, over the course of this season, he can get that going again. I reckon 2-1 with Morris and Kenzo scoring. Do you know something? I was looking at Derby County's, I'm not sure if it was on Twitter or Instagram, I think it was on Instagram because I posted it on my story, and they were sort of asking who's going to score the first goal. A lot of people think Carlton Morris, a lot of people think Corey Blackett-Taylor as well. Hopefully one of them picks up a goal. I heard their keeper Johansson was linked with West Ham and other Prem sides. Yeah, he was. He was linked with a move to West Ham. He was linked with a couple of other moves as well. But I believe he was sort of priced out of the move with Stoke asking for like nearly 20 million quid, I think I read somewhere. But obviously, in the best interest of Johansson, he was probably one of the best keepers in the Championship last season and has been for the last few seasons. So I do think that Premier League move is not far away, even if it doesn't happen now. But best of luck to him. He's a great goalkeeper. Derby County were obviously one of the teams sort of interested in picking him up last year. I think the fee was about £900,000 that he went to Stoke for. I think it was a release clause. But obviously, Derby County ended up getting with Jakub Zetterstrom, who obviously is a very, very good goalkeeper. In my opinion, has been one of the best goalkeepers Derby County have had for a while. I know there's a lot of talk regarding his kicking and things like that, but for me, I don't actually think it's as bad as many people like to make out. I think he's quite a good goalkeeper, and I think he's fairly decent with the ball at his feet. It's just one of those where if you're asking your keepers to hit the fullbacks on the touchline, they're going to miss every now and again, and it gives the ball away. Whereas under John Eustace, I felt like we was more straight, if that makes sense, more down the pitch to the strikers, or we'd put Ibu just in behind Jerry Yates where he could win those flick-ons and things like that. Harness was good at it as well. And hopefully, obviously, heading into this season, we sort of keep to that with our goal kicks. Yes, we're going to play the short ones occasionally every now and again, but making sure that we maximise it when we do go long with the right players in midfield. You don't want a midfield of Clark and Kenzo sort of battling for second ball, so you're probably going to play short. But if you've got Ibu Adams and Liam Thompson in there, you probably could play that sort of thing. Maybe he'll be even better without the helmet. Do you know something? That helmet has to have caused some issues on occasion. I know he wore it for ages, but it has to cause some sort of problems, because I know for a fact that, like, even when I used to wear gloves to play football when it was cold or whatever, like, you just fiddle about, don't you? And I'm not saying he fiddled with his helmet or anything like that. Not that I noticed anyway, but just having it there, is it comfortable? Is it uncomfortable? I've never wore one of them hats, so I don't really sort of know, if I'm completely honest with you. But hopefully, as we head into this season, we sort of put ourselves in a position where we don't really have to find out if it suits him or not, to be quite honest. And if he needs it, I want us to be in a position where we're not at the bottom, in the bottom positions in terms of that of sort of shots against us and things like that. But it is one of those positions that we find ourselves in, and hopefully over the course of this season we don't have to worry about it too much. Is there any transfer rumours which you want to discuss? Obviously, I've spoke with you've thrown me off there. You've thrown me off. Fiddles with his helmet. Yes, the helmet he was wearing on his head. I'm not talking about any other helmet. Jesus Christ. But yeah, it's one of those where if we can sort of put ourselves in a better position defensively and things like that, then I think we've got absolutely nothing to worry about. Because he's a very, we've got a great manager. We have a great manager. Gilchrist is a player, but again, should not grow our own. Never rely on a lone player because Mount, they go bye-bye. Well, that's interesting because Gilchrist would be a permanent from what I'm reading. I think they want £1.5 million plus add-ons and a sell-on fee, which I don't necessarily think is that bad. They probably also want a buyback clause as well, knowing Chelsea, and they'll probably sign him for 20 million in 3 years. But I don't think it's a bad move. I personally don't. It's obviously not the sort of move that... Does it excite you, bringing in Alfie Gilchrist? I don't know. He's one of them players who I think is quite difficult. Let's take a look at his numbers from last season. Where are you, Alfie Gilchrist? Let's take a look at last season. In terms of per 90 ranks, obviously we ignore the goal scoring ranks and stuff like that 'cause he's a defender. 70. Let's take a look. What does that mean? Hang on. Just give me a second. In terms of different players in their position. So in terms of assists, he's in the top 30 odd percent. In terms of pass accuracy, he's in that top 30%. In terms of long balls, he's in the top 20%. He's in the top 25-30% of aerial duels won. He's in the top 10% of being dribbled past. Obviously no red cards, so he's in a good position there, but yellow cards was a bit of a problem. I think he'd be fairly decent. You just got to sort of be careful with it. What happened with Vickers when we bought O'Donnell and we were linked to other keepers? I thought he was going to go. With Vickers, I was half expecting him to go. I was half expecting Rotherham or MK to make a move. I know it's sort of a bit lazy to look at them two teams. I think Lincoln were interested as well. But I thought we was going to get Angus Gunn to be a backup or to push Zetterstrom for that number one position. But obviously he's ended up going to Forest, which can't really blame him for, European football and things like that. But it is an interesting one because at some point Vickers is going to want first team football, and at the moment he isn't getting that here, which obviously is a little bit disappointing for him because I do think he's a good goalkeeper. I don't necessarily think he's a starting championship keeper though. I think he's decent enough to step in, but not necessarily sort of take that long-term position essentially. But we'll have to wait and see. I stand corrected, get me some insoles. I didn't realise Raul Albentosa was in the chat. Don't want to be bringing him back. Jesus Christ. I wonder if he's still playing actually. Is Raul Albentosa still playing? Raul Albentosa. Let's take a look. Spanish footballer. Has he retired? No, he's playing in the Premier... He's playing in the third tier of Spanish football. He's 36 years old. Where's he been since he left Derby? What are our chances of getting a playoff spot? I think it all depends on the first 5 games. Now, I know people are going to say 46 game season, you've got 41 games after that. But if we do well in these first 5, then we get all those players back fit, we're in an unbelievable position and we're only going to get better. So I think in terms of chances of playoffs, right now I'm going to say 60-40. But over the course of the next few weeks of the transfer window, and obviously heading into next season as well, heading into the next transfer window as well in January, I think we very much have a chance. I'm sitting at 60-40 right now, where it's more probable than it's not, which is probably a little bit weird, really, to say that we finished, 19th last year. But we're in a good position. We've got some good players. And I don't think the team was half as bad as we saw last season under Paul Warne. I think it's brilliant. I think it's a brilliant squad. And we just got to progress it. And that's what Eustace is doing. So I'd probably say 60-40. I wouldn't put a bet on it. I'd never bet on my own club. But that's where we go from there, essentially. I agree, but when we need him, he clutches up. I'm assuming you're on about Vickers. And you're absolutely correct. You are. He was brilliant last year when called upon. And I'm glad that he was. because I think obviously Vickers has been through a lot as a person over the course of the last 2 or 3 years, and I think that sort of period, because obviously he was dropped early in the season, like he started the season and then was dropped for Zetterstrom as soon as he was available, and it's one of those where, did he deserve to be dropped? I don't necessarily think so. But did he deserve to stay in? I'm not entirely sure. But obviously Zetterstrom showed exactly why he was signed and things like that. So who do you think our free kick specialist will be? Kenzo is good, but not sure how much he'll play. I actually think Kenzo is going to be one of the main starters for Derby. So I think he'll be our free kick taker and set piece taker and things like that. I think he'll do free kicks and corners. But I also think Bobby Clark will have a say in that as well. And obviously Callum Elder has stepped up on occasion for the deeper free kicks, which I'm not entirely a fan of, I'm not going to lie. But we will sort of see how that shakes out. Stoke is a good first game, and it will tell us exactly where we are regarding team fitness and patterns of play. Absolutely. They've got a very good manager as well in Mark Robbins, who I think is going to have a tremendous impact on them this season. They've obviously brought in some good players. The likes of, is it Ashley Phillips they've brought in from Tottenham, who I think is a really, really good signing for them and a very, very good player. And he's going to cause problems when he plays. Obviously, I know he's a defender, but he's one of those that is going to cause problems for strikers. He's not going to give them a moment. And that's where you've got to have the better players. You've got to have the better patterns of play to pull those people out of position. And it wouldn't surprise me if tomorrow ended as a draw, because both managers will know that it's important not to lose on opening day, especially not in the way we did last year. Obviously, 4-2 defeat to Blackburn, which John Eustace was managing at the time, and what was a great performance with Andy Vyman coming off the bench and scoring. Conor McGregor, what are chances of winning the playoffs? Now, let's say about 3%, genuinely 3%. But that's only because we've got 46 games to play before we even get there. But if we end up in the playoffs, I think the playoffs is a lottery anyway. Don't get me wrong, I know there's a statistic out there that, I think it's something like 70% of the time the third place team goes up, but you never sort of know how it's going to shake up in the playoffs. Injuries turn up, big defeats across the course of the final games of the season. But we saw Sunderland, they clutched up last year, where they had a poor end to the season, but it's one of those where I think if we get there, I think we've got a great chance if we've got everybody fit. If we get there and numbers are lacking and we've had a poor end to the season, I think it'll be very low. But as of today, before a ball is kicked, 3%. But that could change across the course of the season. If Kenzo is going to play, can someone at least sort out a half-decent song for him? His current chant, Kenzo, Kenzo, is awful. It's very much the most basic chant that you can have in it, really. The whole Kenzo, Kenzo. But obviously, it's got quite an awkward name to put into a chant, though, Auntie, let's be honest. But someone will figure it out. If he performs well this season, I give it 2 or 3 weeks before he's got a quality chant going where he's sort of the main man, and he'll certainly become a fan favourite early doors. If we get into playoffs, Eustace will want to climb. I see a risky move saves us if we get there. Do you know, if we get into the playoffs, I do think we can win it. I do think we can go up. We're definitely in a position where going up is a possibility for us, and I think we've got to sort of keep on top of that, really, because we don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but we also don't want to get too behind in that sense where we're sort of closed up on the players that we've got and things like that, because we're in a very good position. And I'm not going to turn around and say Eustace is going to do a Lampard where he's going to struggle to get things going, but I certainly think he's in a good position to sort of take us forward. What is your favourite chant? What is my favourite chant? In terms of recent years, I'd have to say the deducted 21 points, but I think it needs changing. I do think it needs changing now, because we were deducted 21 points 3-4 years ago. So playoffs, we're going up as fucking champions. Do you know something? Fuck it. Let's go for it. We're going to be champions. Shall we put a bet on? Obviously, bet responsibly. Don't do anything stupid. But Yeah, it would be nice to put us in a great position. Our team is good right now, but I don't think it's Prem level. You're not wrong. You absolutely aren't wrong. And if we went up, we'd have to spend a decent sum of money. I think if you look at what Sunderland are doing now, I think they've spent 100 odd million already in regards to players they've brought in and stuff like that. It's probably more than that now as well, to be fair. But you've got to spend money to go up. And I genuinely believe if we go up, I think we'd sign Bobby Clark permanently. I think Ozo may come permanently as well. And you sort of see how that sort of progresses the team. Steve Bloomer, unique, no Google, who sang it? Fuck knows. I have absolutely no idea. That is a question that I don't think anybody has ever asked me before in my life. So it'll be interesting. Have a big win tomorrow, we could be top of the league. We absolutely could. Obviously, I think Birmingham Ipswich team news has just dropped. Sort of, that is going to be an interesting game. I am going to watch that. But if we look at... Let's take a look at the Birmingham and Ipswich side, just to compare to sort of where we are. Just give me 1 second while I get Birmingham City's team up, as well as Ipswich Town's. Ipswich. Let's go and get Ippy Switch. Do you reckon they've got number 17, Ed Sheeran, on the pitch? So, let's go with Ipswich. They've got Palmer in goal, Johnson, O'Shea, Greaves and Davis as the back four, Matuasa, Jack Taylor in midfield, with Ogbene, Schmodix and Clark as the attacking three, and then George Hurst as the starting number 9. And then on the bench, they've got Walton, Wolfenden, Kipra, Young, Humphreys, Barbrook, Chaplin, Broadhead and Alhamdi. I'd love Connor Chaplin, by the way, and I'd love Broadhead. Very, very good players. If we look at Birmingham City starting 11, who've they got going? Allsop, Osai, Samuel, Neumann, Clara, Cochran, Tomoki, Pike, Gray, Kygo, Anderson, Stanisfield. On the bench, Beadle, Bear. Is that Bear? Yeah, it's got to be Baird. Bielik, Cashin. Fucking. Do you know these teams have got some fairly decent players, haven't they? Let's not lie. And we are in a difficult position against some of these teams. This is a really strong championship with even Wrexham and Birmingham splashing the cash. Yeah, but I think everybody expected Wrexham and Birmingham to chuck cash at it, if I'm completely honest. That's what they've done the last few years. Do you think Derby will sign anyone else, and who could join the squad, and where do you think we will finish in the league? I did my preview and predictions live on stream a couple of days ago, and I've got Derby in that sort of pack just outside the playoffs because of the situation we're in to start the season, where essentially all our new signings aren't fit. And we've essentially got to carry the first 5 games before we actually sort of get ourselves to a position where we can push on, essentially. Loving the chant, Conor McGregor. We'll get that going at Pride Park one day. We'll get it going. Isn't Broadhead linked with Oxford? He was linked with Oxford and I believe Wrexham. Now, whether he makes that move or not, I'm not sure. He's obviously a very, very good player. I've always quite liked Broadhead, to be honest. And I think, to be honest, like I personally think he'll stay at Ipswich unless they get like a ridiculous offer. I think the Wrexham offer was a fair few million. Was anyone bothered when Cash went to Brum? Me, no, too slow. It would be a backward step for both parties. It's interesting you mentioned Cashin, because at the time when he went, we was in a position where I didn't really want us to let go of arguably our best defender that was fit, because obviously Nelson had just got injured, but we was also in a position where we needed the cash, and I actually think that him leaving was a positive for us. Obviously we spent we've then gone on to spend that money, and we're in a much better position than we were 12 months ago. Would I have taken him back? Absolutely. Do I think that him going to Brum was an issue? No. I personally don't care, to be fair. I think the ones that care are ones who thought Cash was better than what he was, if I'm honest. I got a lot of stick a few weeks ago because I said that the move to Brighton has been a failure because they spend essentially 10 million. he plays 15, 20 minutes, and within 6 months they've signed 2 new centre-halves, one of them which is a left-footed, left-sided centre-half, and he's gone out on loan. So for me, I'm not too fussed he went to Brum. I didn't really want it. I'd have taken him back because I think he's got quality at this level. I just don't think it was necessary to bring him back. How many goals do you reckon Carlton Morris will score? I think it'll be between 10 and 15, but I think he's going to have a ton of assists as well. I think he's probably going to be involved in 20, 25 goals this season. With the way that John Eustace is wanting to play, I think he's going to be a key part of that sort of forward line. But we're going to have to wait and see. Hopefully he picks up his first one tomorrow and sort of starts as he means to go on. So I'm going to say all competitions, 25 contributions. But we will see. It obviously depends on people putting chances away as well and creating good opportunities. 11th for me, as it's going to take time for the whole depth to get up to speed. Yeah, that's sort of why I'm outside of the playoff, essentially, because you've obviously got those first 5 games where we're not really going to have the new signings. We might not have Clark, we might not have Beck. So we're sort of in a position where we're sort of muddling through to start off with. But I do think that sort of second half of the season, when everyone's bedded in and we make a couple of moves in January that need to be made, I think will definitely be sort of top 6 form. Whether we end up top 6 is going to be interesting. It depends how far back we fall to start off the season. To be honest, when you're Brighton in the Prem, you can do right now. You can do that right now. They want cash in for the future. The thing is, though, how long do you give cash in? Like, I'm not saying that cash in's a bad player. Don't get me wrong. But what is he? 23, I think. 23, turns 24 in November. They've spent 10 million quid on him, and within 2 games they realised that he wasn't good enough, let's say. Now, he could go and have a brilliant season at Birmingham. They could recoup all their money in the summer, and Bob's your uncle, and they're sorted. But he could also end up spending the next 4 or 5 years of his 6-year contract out on loan while they recoup the money and then let him go on a free. Like, Matt Clark was in a similar position, if I remember rightly, where he was bought by Brighton when he was at Pompey, and then ended up, he was on loan at us for a couple of seasons, then went to West Brom, then went to Middlesbrough, and sort of has only just really sort of found, well, he found a home at Middlesbrough, but it didn't entirely go to plan, and then obviously came to Derby where, like, he's been here before and he was great for us then, he's been great for us since. So I think it'll be interesting to see what they do with cash long term. I am sort of disappointed for him because I did want the move to work, but I always felt as if his skill set is more suited to Championship League One football. I think he'll always be one of the best defenders in the Championship or League One, but I think taking that step up the way he plays, I don't quite think he's in that position. I don't necessarily think he's good enough. What would your dream move for a Championship player for Derby? Do they have to be playing in the Championship now, or just have been in the Championship? Because I'd love Josh Brownhill. Like, scores a goal, can create chances, has a huge impact on the game. But in terms of players that are in the league, I don't know, actually. I'd love Amari Hutchinson from Ipswich. It's never going to happen, but how do you think Derby should line up tomorrow? I spoke about this earlier on, but I'll give you the rundown again. Obviously, we've got a few injury concerns which are causing a bit of problem for Derby County fans and things like that, sort of put teams together. But for me, I think it'll be the same team that started versus the Greek team in the friendly. I think it'll be Zetterstrom in goal, a back 4 of Niambi, Rooney, Bart and Fozzie, a midfield 3 of Thompson, Kenzo and Adams, and a front 3 of Jackson, Blackett, Taylor and Morris. And then as the game goes on, I think the away turn styles. And in the second half, I think Niambi will be swapped with Sanderson. I think Thompson will be swapped with Ozo. And I think Kenzo and Morris will be replaced by Vyman and Brown. Was Hutchinson? No, that's a different Hutchinson. Amari Hutchinson came through, I want to say, Arsenal, then went to Chelsea. You're thinking Isaac Hutchinson, who I believe is now at Walsall, if I'm honest with you. Shall we take a look? Where are Walsall? What league are Walsall in? Are they League 2? Let's check League 2. Hutchinson, Warsaw. Is he at Warsaw or have I got it wrong? No, he's not at Warsaw. Crawley? Is he at Crawley? Crawley Town. Crawley Town. Louis Watson's at Crawley. Where? I know who you're thinking of. Isaac Hutchinson. He's at Bristol Rovers. That's who you're thinking of. He played 22 minutes the other day. 6.29 rating. Last season he scored 6 goals, 4 assists in 43 games. And obviously spent a couple of seasons at Warsaw. He did spend a season at Crawley, that's what I'm thinking. And obviously was at Derby, joined from Southend. But hey ho. Now, any other transfer questions or questions about tomorrow's game? Because we are sort of whittling down, and obviously you've got the Birmingham game on soon-ish, which I will be going and watching. So we'll be getting off before then. So if those of you who do want to go and watch it, you will be able to. I'm not going to keep you for too long. But in terms of transfers then, what have we gone through? Johnston, gone through Lewis Travis, we've gone through Alfie Gilchrist. Will anyone sign today? I don't think anyone's signing today, if I'm honest. I haven't heard anything, haven't heard any news in regards to a move being made. Doesn't mean a move won't be made. Sanderson came out of nowhere. But we'll have to sort of wait and see on that one. Isaac Gordon on the bench. Do you know something? I wouldn't be opposed to it. I wouldn't. But I think with the signing of... to be fair, do we have a spare centre-half? Isaac Gordon could be on the bench, you know. That's actually a good shout. I didn't even think about Gordon in regards to the bench because I forgot that Clark was injured. Although I didn't have him in my team. So, yeah, there is a chance Gordon's on the bench. If he is, he's earned it. Let's not lie. He's had a really, really good pre-season. What happened with Cody Drammer, the one from Hull and Bristol Rovers? So, Cody Drammer, obviously, we put that early exploratory bid to sort of get that deal done, which was obviously initially rejected. I think we then made a permanent offer as well to bring him in. And obviously, as much as you can make these offers, they didn't have a manager, so letting a player go was always going to be sort of an interesting one, and one which maybe wasn't going to happen because obviously they let a player go, the new manager comes in and a deal's sort of already been agreed with another club and they're just sorting out personal terms. He trains, impresses, you cause problems then. So it's one of those where I think it could have happened if they had a manager sooner, but I think over the course of the last couple of weeks he's picked up some big interest from Crystal Palace, who are sort of searching for a fullback and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see if he does end up moving or does stay at Hull. They're obviously in a fairly decent position themselves, but it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out because as much as they've changed managers, they've spent a decent chunk of change in bringing players in. They've obviously had that embargo as well. I'm not entirely sure whether he'll move on. I think the only way he moves on now is if he goes to Palace, and I don't think he goes anywhere else. If I'm honest, I would have liked Cody Drammer because I think he's a good player. I think he would have been a good backup option for Wilson and Nyambe. He can obviously play at the left side as well. But obviously with the signings of Owen Beck and Sanderson, I don't think anything will happen with that now because it is a difficult position to be in when you're trying to bring in a player from another club and they've not got a manager to essentially tell them where they've come from, essentially. Do you think Charles Abuka Abakezu, I can't say his name, I'm not going to lie, will play matches this season, given he had a good pre-season? From what John Eustace was saying in the press yesterday, it seems as if Abuka, Dejan Brown are going to be a huge part of the squad for the first few weeks, heading into the first international break. And as much as I want him to get game time and I want him to play, for Derby County, obviously. I want him to be a huge success. I don't know how much he's going to play. I think one of Abuka or Brown will get the opportunity to play versus West Brom on Tuesday, because I think we'll protect Carlton. I think we'll pretty much flip the squad from that opening day, just to protect players and things like that. But it'll be one of those where I think he deserves the opportunity, just like Dejan Brown does. But it'll be interesting to see how much of an opportunity he actually gets. I felt last season Dejan Brown deserved an opportunity and Paul Ward didn't really give him one. I think he played about 500-600 minutes across the course of the full season, which obviously, yes, had that injury late on, may have played more under John Eustace, but didn't get the chance to sort of really prove himself for me. But I do think Charles Abuka could have an impact, but I think if Ajimang and Selverson are on course to return during that international break, I think both will head out on loan. I think Abuka will go National League. I think Brown will go League One or League Two. I think it's got Burton or Notts County written all over it. I know there's been some talk of Bristol Rovers, but who knows really. It'll obviously be an interesting one to sort of see where it all shakes up, because obviously very, very good players. Have you seen the heavily interest from Everton for Knight? They're really pushing. If they give him the chance, he's good. Do you know something? Jason Knight, for me, is one of those players who work rate alone is a Premier League player. Like, he's got the technical ability to back it as well. I don't know if he's like a top-end Prem player or he's sort of like one of those players that would mill around at like a mid-table team, but I think he's got the ability. I spoke about it on the channel a few months ago because obviously Jason Knight has a huge future. He's a very, very good player, and Derby County, we're led to believe, has a sell-on clause for Jason Knight. So if he does end up moving on, it gives us some money. So I really hope he does. It also weakens a rival of ours if we are pushing for those playoff positions. And obviously with David Moyes, if they get Jason Knight, opens up the door for Harrison Armstrong to move out. But obviously there's a lot of talk about Armstrong potentially staying with Everton this season. Apparently he's had a really good pre-season. I can't say I've kept up to date with him, but Everton fans have been really impressed. What do you think about Phillips to West Brom? To be honest with you, at first, when obviously there was a lot of talk about it being a free transfer, he was out of contract at Liverpool, I was a little bit disappointed. I was sort of hoping that Derby County would get the deal done. But in terms of, obviously, the fact that it cost a fee, I believe the fee was in the region of around £3 million. I'm glad Derby County didn't do it. I think it's a brilliant move for West Brom. I think it's a good move for Nat Phillips as well. I think Phillips is a great player. Obviously, it was a huge part of the reason we stayed up last season. Obviously, just with that goal at Hull City alone, some of his defensive performances were unbelievable as well. But it's one of those where you sort of, it's right on the edge of being one you're happy about, but also you're not happy about because you would love him back. But I think we've got some excellent centre-halves in the building, and I don't necessarily think that in terms of those defensive positions, I don't necessarily think we needed Nat Phillips to come back when obviously you bring Danny Bart in and things like that. Who do you think Derby could bring in from now to the end of the transfer window? I think, given the asking price now for Alfie Gilchrist, I think there's a chance he could come. Obviously, there's a lot of talk regarding Lewis Travis, although nothing concrete. I think that would be a good deal to get done. Obviously, a very, very good player. But you're in that position where if we can go out and get a left winger of some description, I think it puts us in a great position. Realistically, I think we're a left winger away from being a playoff team. But I understand that being a playoff team is a lot more than just sort of having a couple of options in each position. It's people standing up for each other as the game goes on, and I don't necessarily think that we have that in that position right now. But there's always time. I think it has to be a left winger, but I don't really know who is available in that position. I wish I had access to like the transfer room, that all these clubs get notifications of players being available and things like that, and obviously know who Derby County are looking at. But obviously you can't sort of force those situations and force those positions. But I think we're in a great position in terms of the squad we've got. I just think we're lacking a bit in the wide areas. But that can change overnight. We could sign someone on Sunday who completely changes the position. How much did we get for Delap going to Chelsea? I think it was around 1.5. So we initially sold Delap to City for 1.6. Then when he went to Ipswich, I believe we got 1.5 added on to that. And then when he went to Chelsea, it was a lot less than that. I think it was within £500,000 to £700,000. But I'm not entirely sure on those figures. That's just like an estimate based on what Chelsea would have received and then based on what we'd have got from that. What Ipswich would have received and then what we'd have got from what City get, essentially. Are we still interested in Carlon Grant, as I think he'll be a good addition to our squad? The interest in Grant is as I say, interesting one. Is a very good player. Obviously would be a great addition to the squad, but it's one of those where I don't necessarily know if a move is going to happen. There was a lot of interest from, I believe, Saudi in Carlon Grant and Turkey and places like that. But obviously, at the moment, no deal has been done anywhere. He could end up staying with West Brom. He's obviously a very good Championship player, and he's shown that across the course of his career. So if we do get him, delighted. He can play off that left side, can also play as a number 9. It's exactly what I say in terms of having those options further forward. So if he does come, it's a great move. If he doesn't, it's not the worst thing in the world, but we'll obviously have to wait and see. Massive improvement on this time last year, no doubt. Oh, no doubt at all. We've got, 4 different striker options. Obviously, the wide positions are a bit lacking. In midfield, we've got some excellent options. The defensive line is solid. Not worried about any of them at all. So I think we are in a great position to sort of move forward into this first real season under that of John Eustace, where he is going to be our manager. And it's a great position that we find ourselves in. Carlon Grant reminds me of Dolan, interested with a lot of Championship, but also some random clubs abroad. Yeah, Dolan going to Espanyol was a very it was a surprising one, really. They've probably offered a lot better wages than us, and obviously you're in that position where sunny Spain, rainy Derby, what do you want? And obviously sort of for Dolan, he wanted sunny Spain, and I think his sister does a lot of TikToks, and he talks about Spain being like a second home, so it's not really much of a shock, really, but it's a good move for him. I personally think I don't personally think Grant will come to Derby. I don't think the deal will happen, although I think it would be a good one in regards to getting that calibre of player. I think last season he was very, very good for West Brom, despite not being sort of the key figure for them anymore. And sort of being that sort of second option, obviously with them having Fallows in and around the squad. Where is Colin Grant? Let's look at his numbers from last year. I'd pick Derby. I think all of us in here probably would pick Derby, to be quite honest. But who knows? Last season, 7 goals and 2 assists in 34 starts, which ain't too bad at all, really. Very, very good Championship player. And he sort of, if he can stay at this level, I don't think he's got any problem in terms of performance-wise. To be quite honest with you, I think that's exactly what he's good at, if that makes sense, playing at this level. I don't necessarily think he can make that step up to the Premier League now, but obviously that's something which can sort of be addressed across the course of the next couple of years, where I think he'll probably move on from West Brom either this season or the end of this year, where I think he's out of contract anyway. But I think if we don't get him now, I don't think we'll get him, in complete honesty, unless it's a loan deal in January, because we've got a couple of injuries. But we'll obviously have to wait and see on that one. Now, I've been with you for over an hour and 25 minutes. If you have enjoyed, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell. We will be live tomorrow around 2:30 for a watch along of Derby County versus Stoke. Obviously can't have the game on the screen, but we'll try and put the score in the corner based on what I'm watching, so you know where I am time-wise and things like that. But I'll keep you up to date with everything. I will be live tomorrow at 2:30, so turn the notification bell on. Let's just answer one more. I feel for Selverson because I don't think he'll play a lot this season, even though he played well when he did play. He did play well, he did cause problems, and what you've got to think is there'll always be an injury. A suspension will always pop up, and he just has to take advantage. If he doesn't take advantage, it falls on his shoulders, unfortunately. But I hope he gets the chance. Nice one, good life. Cheers, Thriller. I will catch you in the next one. If you aren't at Stoke tomorrow, make sure you are here. Your #1 channel for Derby County content. But that is going to be all for me.